Most people think money problems begin when income is too low. Usually that is not where the real damage starts. It starts earlier than that. It starts in parts of life that look harmless while they are happening. A few hours disappear every day, a little more money comes in, and fixed costs rise with it. Work takes most of your energy, but leaves you very little room to think. Then whatever cash is left gets pulled into things that make life feel easier for a moment, but do almost nothing for your future. That is why so many hardworking people stay financially weak for years without fully understanding why. From the outside, life looks normal, bills are being paid, work is getting done, nothing looks dramatic, but under the surface, almost nothing is getting stronger. If you have ever felt that something in your life keeps absorbing your time, your focus, and your money before they can become real security, you are probably seeing the problem more clearly than most people do. That feeling usually means one important thing. You are no longer satisfied with just staying busy. You want to understand why effort is not turning into stability. And that is what this video is about. Not motivation, not fantasy, not another speech about working harder. This is about 4 hidden things that quietly drain wealth while people are still telling themselves that everything is more or less fine. The first one steals your attention. The second keeps you working without giving you margin. The third makes your whole life too dependent on one narrow structure. And the fourth persuades you to spend money in ways that look successful, but leave you weaker underneath. None of these begin like disasters. That is exactly why they do so much damage. By the time most people finally see what is happening, years are already gone. Their focus is weaker, their savings are thinner, their options are smaller, and their future still depends on a system that can shake them at any time. So if you have been working hard and still feel as though your life never becomes secure, do not rush past that feeling. Do not dismiss it. There is usually a real reason behind it. And once you can see that reason clearly, you can finally start fixing the right problem. Now let us go one step deeper. Why do so many hardworking people stay stuck for so long? Why do they keep moving, keep earning, keep carrying responsibility, and still never seem to build enough real strength? One reason is that modern life makes it very easy to confuse movement with progress. If you are always busy, it feels as if something meaningful must be happening. If you are tired all the time, it is easy to believe that the tiredness itself proves you are doing the right thing. If your schedule is full, your mind often stops asking whether the structure of your life is actually improving. That is where the trap begins. A person can work hard inside a weak structure for years. They can become disciplined, reliable, and exhausted all at the same time. And because the effort is real, they assume the result will eventually come. But effort by itself does not guarantee financial strength. What matters is what that effort is allowed to become. In one kind of life, work turns into savings, margin, skill, patience, and options. In another kind of life, work turns into bills, recovery spending, stress, and the next urgent week. From the outside, both people may look equally serious. Inside, they are moving in completely different directions. This is why I do not like shallow advice that says people stay poor because they do not try. That is too simple. Many people are trying very hard. The real question is whether their current life keeps swallowing everything before anything has time to compound. If it does, then more effort alone will not solve enough of the problem. You can see this in very ordinary ways. A person finishes a long workday with almost no mental energy left, so they reach for whatever gives quick relief. Another month goes by and nothing has been reviewed carefully. No skill has been built, no serious planning has happened, no breathing room has been created. Then they tell themselves they will fix it once life calms down. But life rarely calms down on its own. It simply repeats the pattern. That is why hidden drains are so dangerous. They do not stop you from functioning. They stop you from compounding. You can survive inside them for a long time. You can even look respectable inside them. But year after year, they keep reducing the amount of strength your life is actually able to hold. A Buffett-style perspective is useful here because it forces a different question. Not just how much are you earning? Not just how hard are you working? The better question is what remains after life takes its share? What is left that can become stability? What is left that can become leverage? What is left that can still belong to your future? If the answer is very little, then the issue is not only income. The issue is that your life is leaking in places you may not have named yet. And once you understand that, the goal changes. You stop trying to look more successful on the surface. You start trying to become harder to break underneath. That shift is where real improvement begins. Because the moment you stop worshiping busyness and start protecting strength, you begin to see your life more honestly. And once you can see it honestly, the next decisions get much better. The first hidden thing quietly draining wealth is cheap stimulation that steals attention. That may sound less serious than debt, rent, or income pressure, but in many lives it starts doing damage even earlier. Attention decides what you notice, what you think about, what you learn, what you ignore, and what kind of future you are mentally available to build. Think about how an ordinary day now begins for a lot of people. Before the mind is fully awake, the phone is already there. Messages, clips, news, reels, shorts, highlights, arguments, recommendations. By the time real thinking could have started, the brain is already reacting to other people's priorities. Then, the same pattern keeps going through the day. Small breaks get filled immediately. Commuting gets filled immediately. Waiting gets filled immediately. Even rest gets filled with background content. Nothing feels dramatic while it is happening. That is exactly why the habit becomes so powerful. Cheap stimulation rarely feels expensive because the direct cost is usually low. A few videos, a few scrolls, little entertainment at lunch, more content at night because the day felt heavy. The person tells himself it is harmless because it is normal, but the real price is not measured only in minutes. It is measured in what those minutes keep pushing out of life. They push out reflection. They push out reading. They push out the kind of boredom that often leads to original thought. They push out the patience required to learn something difficult. They push out the mental quiet required to notice where money is leaking, where time is being wasted, and where life has become reactive instead of deliberate. That is the part many people miss. They think distraction is only stealing time. In reality, it often steals depth. And depth is one of the conditions that almost every form of improvement depends on. If you cannot stay with a thought, stay with a skill, stay with a plan, or stay with an uncomfortable truth for long enough, then good intentions remain weak. This matters financially because wealth does not grow only from effort. It grows from sustained clarity. A person has to notice patterns. They have to recognize bad habits early. They have to keep their emotions from making too many decisions. They have to stick with useful work long enough for it to compound. All of that depends on attention. There is another hidden cost here as well. A brain trained on constant stimulation starts losing its tolerance for ordinary effort. Quiet work feels flatter. Reading feels slower. Planning feels harder. Even rest becomes less restorative because the nervous system never quite settles. Then the person needs even more stimulation just to feel engaged again. That creates a cycle. Distraction makes real work feel heavier. Heavier work creates more appetite for escape. More escape weakens attention even further. And once that cycle repeats long enough, a person can become highly informed in fragments while still being underdeveloped in judgment. You can see the difference very clearly over something as small as 5 extra hours in a week. 5 hours can disappear into clips, scrolling, and mental noise without leaving anything behind except temporary relief. The same 5 hours used with intention can help a person finish a book, review spending, learn a tool, improve communication, or understand an industry better. The calendar looks almost the same from the outside. The long-term result you do not need to become extreme to fix this. You do not need to throw away every device and disappear from modern life, but you do need some protected territory. A block of time in the morning before the feed enters your head. A fixed hour in the evening where the phone leaves the room. A weekly review where you sit with your finances, your direction, and your habits without noise. The point is not to act superior. The point is to reclaim enough continuity of thought for your future to have a chance. Because once attention is permanently fragmented, compounding becomes much harder. Most people think they are only losing time to cheap stimulation. Very often they are losing the inner condition that would have allowed time to become progress in the first place. The second hidden thing, quietly draining wealth, is a working life that creates no margin. This is where many responsible adults get trapped for years without realizing how structural the problem has become. They are employed, they are useful, they are busy, from morning to night. But after rent, bills, commuting, food, recurring costs, and recovery spending, almost nothing remains that can become flexibility. This is why busyness can be so deceptive. A person can be fully occupied and still be financially stagnant. They can work hard enough to respect themselves and still be stuck inside a structure that keeps converting effort into maintenance. Income comes in, obligations remove most of it. Fatigue builds. Some money gets spent to make the fatigue more bearable. Then the cycle starts again. From the outside, that life can look respectable. The person wakes up early, shows up on time, carries responsibility, keeps going. But the deeper question is not whether they are trying. The deeper question is whether their system leaves any room for progress after survival has taken its share. That is what margin really means. Margin is not laziness. Margin is not waste. Margin is room. It is cash that keeps a small emergency from becoming debt. It is time that lets you think before saying yes. It is energy that lets you learn something new without feeling punished for it. It is breathing room that allows patience, judgment, and better decisions to exist. When margin disappears, life starts compressing everything. Every surprise matters too much. Every bill feels urgent. Every inconvenience costs more than it should. Every raise gets recruited quickly by higher overhead. Under those conditions, even smart people start making short-term decisions, not because they are short-sighted by nature, but because the structure around them punishes long-range thinking. That is why some people remain financially weak, even after income improves. They assume higher income will solve the problem by itself. Sometimes it helps, but if the operating pattern stays the same, the new money often gets absorbed into a more expensive baseline. Better apartment, more convenient routines, higher subscriptions, better car, better image. Soon the raise is gone, but the pressure remains. A Buffett-style lens is useful here. The purpose of earning more is not simply to decorate life faster, it is to retain more strength. If income rises but margin does not, then what improved was appearance more than security. And when that mismatch lasts for years, people begin to believe that endless hustle is normal and that safety is always somewhere later. That belief is damaging because it quietly shrinks ambition. Once someone has lived in a no-margin system long enough, they stop imagining strategic moves. They stop believing they can slow down long enough to build a better skill. They stop believing they can choose a less impressive lifestyle for a while in order to become stronger later. They begin optimizing only for immediate relief. This is why I do not see the problem as anti-work. Work matters, discipline matters, earning matters. The problem is a structure that captures almost everything work produces and gives nothing back in the form of cushion, leverage, or flexibility. Many people are not building a life. They are financing a machine that keeps them tired. The correction begins with honesty. Which costs are truly necessary and which costs have hardened into permanent overhead because your current life normalized them? Which routines actually support your future and which ones simply make the present more expensive to sustain? Which upgrades are helping you grow and which ones are quietly destroying breathing room? For a lot of people, the breakthrough is not glamorous. It may mean reducing fixed costs more aggressively than peers expect. It may mean refusing an image upgrade that looks earned on the surface. It may mean letting some visible status go quiet so that invisible stability can finally form. Margin is rarely exciting in public, but it is one of the first real signs that a financial life is getting stronger. Many people think they need an entirely different life. Sometimes what they need first is simply enough room for their current life to stop consuming all of its own output. The third hidden thing quietly draining wealth is dependence that slowly kills your options. This is one of the least visible forms of fragility because it often arrives wearing the clothes of stability. A person stays in one job, depends on one income source, repeats one narrow task, and becomes deeply adapted to one environment. For a while, that can feel safe, but safety and dependence are not the same thing. Optionality is one of the most underrated forms of financial strength. It is the ability to move, negotiate, wait, pivot, or rebuild without feeling ruined by the first disruption. A person with optionality may not look dramatic from the outside, but their life contains more exits, more flexibility, and more time to respond. A person without optionality can look stable right up until the moment conditions change. You can see this in ordinary careers all the time. Someone spends 10 years getting very good at one internal process, one company culture, one local network, or one specialized task that only really matters inside that system. Their experience is real. Their discipline is real. But much of their usefulness is tied to one arrangement staying exactly where it is. The emotional trap is subtle. Human beings naturally prefer the familiar. Familiarity lowers anxiety. It creates routine. It allows a person to say, at least I know how this world works. So they stay. Then they stay longer. Eventually they are no longer staying because the option is excellent. They are staying because movement itself has started to feel dangerous. That is where comfort quietly turns into captivity. The longer a person depends on one employer, one local structure, one type of paycheck, or one narrow role for almost everything, the harder it becomes to imagine alternatives. They lose some bargaining power before they realize it. They become less willing to negotiate, less willing to test another path, more willing to tolerate conditions they would once have rejected. This matters financially, because wealth is not just about what you earn today, it is also about how many options remain open tomorrow. If one system controls your household, your schedule, your confidence, and your income at the same time, then one disruption can create far more fear than the numbers alone would suggest. Dependency makes people fragile before the crisis even arrives. And the modern world changes faster than a lot of people emotionally prepare for. A software tool changes. A department gets cut. A platform loses relevance. A company decides efficiency matters more than loyalty. None of that has to mean the person is worthless. But if their identity, income, and confidence were all tied to one narrow arrangement, the shock feels personal and total. A Buffett-style mindset sees this clearly. Strong financial lives are rarely built on total dependence. They are built on positions that become harder to corner. Sometimes that comes from ownership. Sometimes it comes from cash reserves that buy time. Sometimes it comes from a skill stack that travels better than a single narrow role. Sometimes it comes from building capability outside the channel that currently pays the bills. The exact form can vary, but the principle stays the same. Do not let the structure of your life remove your options while pretending to protect you. If everything depends on one gatekeeper staying generous, one industry staying healthy, or one role staying relevant, then the calm you feel may be more fragile than it looks. The correction here is not reckless quitting. It is deliberate widening. Learn something that increases transferability. Build a second layer of usefulness. Strengthen relationships outside the narrow lane you already know. Create some savings, however modest, that buy you time. Make yourself a little less cornered each year. That wider position changes more than risk. It changes posture. A person with options negotiates differently. They think more clearly. They are less likely to accept unhealthy terms just to preserve familiarity. Optionality does not remove uncertainty from life, but it prevents uncertainty from owning you completely. A person who has only one route forward is usually more fragile than they appear. And fragility is a quiet drain on wealth because it shapes decisions long before disaster arrives. It makes people settle faster, fear change more, and postpone growth because experimentation feels too expensive. When optionality dies slowly, fear becomes the hidden manager of a financial life. And once fear starts managing your decisions, wealth has a much harder time forming. The fourth hidden thing, quietly draining wealth, is status spending that buys image instead of strength. This is where modern consumer life becomes especially dangerous because the market no longer sells only products. It sells identity. It sells belonging. It sells reassurance. It sells the feeling that a purchase can move you into a different category of person. That is why status spending is not limited to obvious luxury. It can show up in phones, weddings, travel, cars, clothes, neighborhoods, food habits, children's expenses, and countless smaller forms of visible consumption. The common thread is not simply price. The common thread is that money is being used to signal who you are or who you are trying not to be, instead of strengthening the invisible structure of your life. This becomes more intense when people feel fragile underneath. If someone does not feel safe yet, they may try to feel successful. If they do not feel powerful yet, they may try to look elevated. If they cannot escape the fear of being ordinary, behind, or unimpressive, they may buy symbols that soften that fear for a while. That is why I do not think status spending is just vanity. Very often it is compensation. A person wants dignity, respect, beauty, and social acceptance. Those are normal desires. The trouble starts when expensive symbols begin replacing the slower work of building durability. Then money that could have become savings, optionality, skill, or ownership gets redirected into performance. And performance is expensive because it rarely stops with one purchase. One visible upgrade creates pressure for the matching routine. The routine creates pressure for the matching environment. The environment creates pressure for the matching social standard. Soon the person is not paying for one object. They are paying to keep an identity story alive. This is where future wealth disappears in a way that looks reasonable, one decision at a time. The coffee habit that says you are doing well. The device that says you belong in a higher bracket. The financed upgrade that says your sacrifice is visible now. The event spending that says your life matters. Each choice makes emotional sense in the moment. Over time, the pattern can hollow out security. A Buffett-style contrast is useful here. Quiet wealth is often willing to be underestimated for a while. It does not need applause every week. Status spending wants recognition early. It wants the outside world to confirm a transformation before the underlying numbers support it. That is why it is so hostile to compounding. Compounding asks for patience and invisibility. Status spending asks for display. This is also why people can feel richer for a moment while becoming weaker in reality. The outside signals improve first. The inside structure improves later, or sometimes never. That gap is where a lot of financial anxiety hides. A person looks better, but does not actually feel safer. The correction is not to reject every pleasure or pretend beauty has no value. The correction is to ask a harder question before meaningful spending. After the moment passes, does this purchase leave my life stronger? Does it reduce pressure, increase capability, buy time, protect health, or improve resilience? Or is it mainly helping me manage insecurity in a visible way? That one question can save a person from years of quiet leakage. Because when you learn to separate private strength from public image, advertising loses some of its power over you. Social pressure loses some of its power over you. Comparison loses some of its power over you. Money no longer has to perform identity work before it can do something useful. And that is a major turning point. When spending stops serving image first, cash becomes available for more important jobs. It can start buying margin. It can start buying patience. It can start buying recovery from fragility. It can start building a future that does not need to be advertised in order to be real. So how do you break these four hidden drains once you can see them clearly? The answer is not to overhaul your life in one dramatic week. That usually fails. A stronger approach is to build a cleaner operating system around attention, margin, optionality, and spending. The first reset is to defend your attention. Do not wait for leftover focus to appear on its own. It usually will not. Protect a block of time where stimulation is reduced and depth becomes possible again. Use that time to read, think, review, write, plan, or learn. If your attention remains permanently rented out, the rest of your financial intentions will keep collapsing into reaction. The second reset is to create margin before you chase a more expensive lifestyle. Review fixed costs with unusual honesty. Ask which ones genuinely support your life and which ones mainly preserve a version of life that looks good from the outside. Margin is not glamorous, but it is often the first visible proof that a financial life is becoming stronger. The third reset is to build optionality on purpose. Add skills that travel better. Deepen competence that matters in more than one setting. Strengthen relationships outside the immediate circle that already knows you. Reduce the extent to which one employer, one role, or one system can dictate your choices. The goal is not constant change. The goal is to become less cornered. The fourth reset is to spend to strengthen, not merely to signal. Before a meaningful purchase, ask what job the money is actually being asked to do. Is it buying durability, capability, time, mobility, or resilience? Or is it mainly helping you project a story right now? That question can protect years of future stability. If you want a practical way to start, do not try to fight all four drains equally on day one. Pick the one that is costing you the most right now. If distraction is the main leak, start there. If fixed costs are suffocating you, start there. If dependence is the risk, widen your options. If image spending is the issue, slow that down first. A focused repair is usually more durable than a dramatic burst of self-discipline. None of these resets work overnight. They do not need to. What matters first is direction. Once direction changes, compounding can finally start helping you instead of working against you. Here is the deeper point behind everything we covered today. Most people do not remain financially weak because they are hopeless. They remain weak because ordinary life trains them to leak what should have compounded. Attention is scattered. Margin is consumed. Options narrow. Money gets spent, proving strength instead of building it. Once you understand that, the question changes. Instead of asking only how to earn more, you begin asking what in your life is quietly draining the power of what you already earn. That is a harder question, but it is also a more useful one. If I were to reduce this entire video to one Buffett-aligned principle, it would be this. Wealth belongs not only to the person who can produce money, but to the person who can protect the conditions that allow money to become stability. Clearer attention, more retained margin, wider optionality, less image-driven spending. Those are not glamorous words, but they are powerful words. So do not try to repair everything at once. Find the strongest drain in your life right now. Fix that first. Then stay with the repair long enough for your structure to change. Because when the structure changes, the future changes with it. And that is the part many people underestimate. A stronger future rarely begins with one huge breakthrough. More often it begins when the quiet leaks stop. Less wasted attention, less trapped income, less dependence, less money spent performing security. When those leaks slow down, real strength finally has somewhere to stay. That's all. Thanks for watching.